Hi, this is Roland Jean Charles from PMI JCM Realty Group, where we manage properties from an asset management perspective. Today, what I'm going to be talking to you about are 5 tips to avoid placing bad tenants. Now, tenants are the lifeblood of any property management business, but bad tenants can also be a death nail to any property management business. But not just property management businesses, but also landlords who are self-managing their property. So it's very important that you, as a property owner or a property manager, you're placing the right tenants in your property. And in order to do that, I'm going to give you 5 tips of what you should do to properly screen your tenants. So what are these 5 tips, right? So the first thing is you got to make sure you have tenant screening. Now, for me, tenant screening means using a state-of-the-art system to screen the tenants. For different people, different property managers, different owners, tenant screenings come in different forms. Some people use just their feeling, their gut, they meet the people, they do it on a handshake. I like a little bit more of a robust interaction, a little bit of a robust background check. And so I always use a state-of-the-art tenant screening software, and you can get that through a property management software. But there are also companies that specialize in just doing tenant screenings, and you can Google the different options that you have out there. And that's the way to go to identify a good tenant. So make sure you are doing your due diligence and getting that tenant screening done. The next thing that you may want to do is meet the tenant in person. Now, this is a very low tech approach. And I know I just mentioned earlier that some people only use that. I think it's a good addition to having a property management software doing that background screening, but it shouldn't definitely never be the only thing you're doing to screen, to perform due diligence on tenants before you allow them to move into your property, right? So you want to meet them in person. You may want to check their car, when you do meet them in person, because chances are the way they keep their car is how they're going to keep your property. And so if you meet someone that wants to rent your property and their car has a lot of has junk in it and a lot of different things in it, chances are that's the way your property is going to be kept. Now, just because someone is messy doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a bad tenant, but you do want to make sure that they're not destroying your property and they're making sure that the property is kept proper, is upkept. The third tip that I want to give you is you want to validate references. I've once had an experience where a prospect gave me their family members as their references, and as I spoke to these individuals and they told me their first and their last names, I realized these were family members, and that is a red flag and is very concerning. You should always be able, if you are screening a potential tenant, they should always be able to provide you references of people that are not their family members, right? People that don't have to worry about them having to stay with them if they don't get an apartment, right? Because at that rate, they'll say anything to get them out the house. So make sure you validate the references. Make sure the references are arm's length. Maybe it's a coworker, an employer, or someone other than a family member that can vouch for these prospects. You also want to validate employment income, right? So you can either contact the HR or contact their supervisor. There are more formal ways to contact the HR department. Someone can give you anyone's name as their supervisor. It may not necessarily be the case. And so make sure you get valid employment information and make sure you contact the HR department. Usually what I do is I get the last 2 pay stub checks, right? And so if the last 2 pay stub checks typically is fine for me, but sometimes I do contact HR and their managers depending on how I interact with them and what the information they put in their application. So that's the 4th tip. Make sure that you validate the income. The 5th tip is to contact current and former landlords, right? And so they are going to be able to give you a wealth of information. Of course, they can't really disparage a tenant, but they can tell you the facts about their account, particularly if the tenant signed off on that signed off on their application, that you can contact you can contact either the credit bureaus, or they can get information from their previous landlord about their background in renting from them, right? And so that's why, you know, having a formal process, using a formal system is always good, because in there they have, when they sign those applications, whether it's electronically or on paper, they give you the authorization to get information from former and current landlords, and that will be a wealth of information as well. There's nothing better than me when I contact the landlord and they say, I wish they didn't leave, I don't want them to go, but this is the reason why they're moving on. And so that makes me feel good that I'm getting a good tenant. And so make sure that you are looking for ways to improve your screening to avoid bad tenants. The laws are always changing per state, and federal laws change as well. Make sure you have a good understanding of what you can and you can't do. That's going to keep you out of the hairs of, you know, government officials and bureaucracies. And it's also going to make sure it protects you so that you have good tenants in your property. This is Roland Jean Charles from PMI JCM Realty Group. I hope you liked this video. If it was helpful, please go to my Facebook group. You can join that group. We're trying to grow it as quickly as possible. We're also going to be doing a free webinar. The link for that webinar is going to be at the bottom of this article, and it's also going to be in all the different mediums in the link section. So please look out for that. And I also do coaching, and I also have additional free content on my website. So please reach out to me if you have any questions or comments. Thank you for your time, and do have a great day. Bye-bye.